Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Ashley. If you are new, welcome, and if you're not new, thank you for coming back for another video. So in today's video, we're going to be hopping into the Natasha Denona BIBA palette, all neutral palette, and I'm going to be doing a demonstration of this eye look for you guys. Here is a quick look at the inside of the palette, and if you want to see some swatches, you want to see some comparisons with non-Natasha Denona eyeshadows to see if you have these tones already in your collection, definitely stay tuned. Okay, first impressions for the BIBA palette. I don't know, I couldn't resist. It's just so okay, here it is. It is one of her her hard plastic packages. So you can see that is what the packaging looks like. What I do like about this is that it stands right up. So however you set it, you know, the mirror stays, which is really nice. The names are written on the palette. So this is a little first look for you guys. The names are written right there on the palette, so you don't have to deal with the little like plastic insert that is in her soft, you know, her softer packaging. You see this little flappy insert that you have to deal with. It's not a big deal if you're not like doing videos or trying to look at and see what the name of the shade is. Okay, if you don't need to deal with this, then you can cut it out. It is perforated, so you can rip it out and be done with it, but I need to keep mine, so that's a little bit of an annoyance with that format of palette. So I'm happy to see that that's not in this one, and we got the names right there available. So I'm gonna hop right on into a quick eye look. Well, hopefully it's quick. And my eyes have been prepped with the NYX base as well as my Too Faced Born This Way concealer. I'm going in with Freckle. This is, and I've got the little box code here. Freckle is a creamy matte shade, and when I put the brush into the powder, it does have a nice amount of kick up in the pan. And I'm putting this down as a transition. Alright, so it's one of the lighter shades in the palette, so that's a positive for me, because since it's one of the, there's only one shade that's lighter than this, that means that the other shades in the palette will work, I think, pretty well on my skin tone. I'm going to go in with one of the cream to powder formulas. I've never used, I don't even know if she's ever put any of this type of formula in her palettes before, so I've not seen it in any of the palettes that I have, but I'm going in with the shade Tone. This looks like it's a little bit, it just has a different undertone than Freckle. I'm going to put this in the lower into the crease area. Okay, so this would be, again, I think this would be another, like a different toned transition shade, because this is showing up lighter than it did in the pan, which she did say that these cream to powder formulas do show up a little bit lighter when applied than they do on the pan. So I'm not getting too much of a color differentiation with those two shades. Maybe just I'll have to use one as more of a neutral tone transition and then the other one as a warmer tone transition maybe. I'm going to go in with Buff. This is right next to Tone, and this is in her creamy matte formula that I've already been familiar with. And this is giving a little bit more, you guys can see that that's adding more pigmentation. You're getting more color with this shade when you lay this down. Okay, so yeah, I'm getting a lot more shade with this, a lot more color, a lot more pigmentation. So that's nice. That's a nice shade, and it's blending in nicely with the others that I've already put down. My 26S Wayne Goss in the shade Rayon. I want to see how this shows up on the skin in the transition, or in the crease area. This is the cream to powder formula. Alright, so with this one, I'm getting a little bit of depth, but it's not a whole bunch of depth. I'm going to see about Pasha. This is like a similar tone to Rayon, but in the creamy matte formula. And then there's the pigmentation. There is that pigmentation. And I'm going to take this on the inner corner as well. This just lays down so nicely. This shade here. So this Pasha shade is going to be a great one if you don't want to go in with a black for your crease. This is going to be really good. For like a more warmer burgundy or tone. See, this row that I'm in right now is the more warmer toned row in the palette. Okay. Taking Rayon on a my builder or my Blender Pro brush and going around Pasha to just give a little bit more dimension and blend. Then going into Buff on the edges. And so for the center of the lid, I'm going in with Shine. This is in the top row of the palette, and putting that right on the middle, and that goes on really nicely. No glitter glue has been applied, and I'm taking that all the way up to the top of the crease. That's really pretty. That is a beautiful shade. And there's no fallout, like no fallout, no chunkiness or anything like that. Rustic, the other metallic in the shade, in the palette, in that same row, and lay this on the edges of where we just put Shine. And so that gives a nice blend. Jeez, it just blends out. I don't know, people are gonna say like, girl, it's just a neutral palette, but they just blend. It blends out so nicely. Piece of hair. All right, I've got Pasha back on this 26S and putting that, you know, just to replace anywhere where it went away from me applying the metallic. And I think I've said this before about her metallic shades, the way you just like lay them on top of each other and then it's just like already blended together. It's just next step, because I'm going to get into this cool row. I don't want to just leave without doing anything with the cool row at the bottom. I'm going to take Tusk on number 7 brush and lay this at the brow bone. Tusk is a nice cream shade. This is her creamy matte formula. It's not the cream to powder stuff. And with Buff on my Blender Pro and making sure that that Tusk blends, you know, that there aren't any harsh lines between Tusk and the transition area. Okay, and actually I'm going to take Monroe. This is the metallic in the second row of the palette. Put that in the inner corner. Alright, I'm going to take a liner brush. This is my number 8 brush. Going into Spot. Just pressing this along the lash line. And Spot is one of those cream to powder formulas. So you're not going to get with this Spot shade like a full, let me just do this first. So we've got a you know, a black, little smoked out, like a smudged out effect on the lash line. I'm going to take that on the lower lash line too. Okay, I'm going in with rayon on the tip of my 26S and putting that right below that spot shade and blending out. And so if you wanted to deepen, you could add some of spot right in the crease there, in the outer V. I think it looks really nice here. So do I want to leave it this way? I think I'm going to leave it this way. Put on some liner, or put on some mascara. Do my other eye, and I will be back. Alright guys, here is the final look. Alright, so let me know what you guys think about the look in the comment section below. So, now that we've gotten that little first look out of the way, or the, you know, my first impression, the first demonstration, you know, out of the way, let's talk about the palette. 15 pan palette from Natasha Denona All Neutrals palette. So we've got 8 creamy mattes, 7 cream to powder finishes, and 3 metallics to make up the 15 shades. And we've got a cool row here, which I think she intended for the last row to be cool, the middle row to be more warm, have more of like a reddish tone to it, or burgundy, mauvey tone to it, and then these down here meant to be a little bit more yellow or a little bit more neutral in tone. So yeah guys, this is extremely everyday, an extremely everyday palette. I like the way the metallics blended out together, like I mentioned during my demo, and I like the way the mattes and the creamy, or the cream to powder finishes blended together as well. So I did not have any issues with blending, any patchiness, any powders not staying where I put them. You know, like sometimes if you put a matte on top of another matte, it will blend away when you try to blend them together. That did not happen at all with the shades that I used. So yes, now let's talk about comparisons. Before I started filming this video, I spent a lot of time looking through my collection and comparing what's in this palette to other palettes in my collection, not Natasha Denona. So a few videos that I've seen on this palette were comparing this to her other palettes, and I wanted to come out of the Natasha Denona line and compare to ABH, Nars. I'm going to scoot over. I'm going to put some pictures over here for you guys to see the swatch comparisons of the palette. So first, let's talk about the Nars Skin Deep palette. When I was determining whether I wanted to pick up this palette, I came home and just picked out some palettes that I thought I could pull similar shades from to achieve the same colors, just based off of the look of the shade. Okay, I'm not doing like comparison eye looks and all that type of thing. This is not that. But so here is the Skin Deep palette, which I have raved about. This was in my January favorites. Alright, and here is the Natasha Denona palette. So we've got some shades that look like they might be similar, like this big brown shade here, going in and looking at Rayon and Pasha. Might look similar, but as you can see on the screen, on the swatch comparison on the screen, there's just a few shades that look like they might be similar. Let's see, so we've got the white shade in the palette, like Tusk in the palette, and then the cream in this palette looks similar, but I feel like the Natasha Denona is more pigmented. And then the black tone in this palette, Spot looks very similar to Coconut Grove in the Nars palette, even though this is like a really dark brown swatched next to Spot. Because that is a cream to powder formula, it does come off a little bit lighter when you use it than it does in the pan. Alright, and then I've got the gray tones. So this tone here being Undressed and Bali. Those shades look very similar to Sculpture and Tour in the palette. So yes, and then the one metallic shade that I thought looked similar to something in the Natasha Denona palette is Icon. The other ones are very different from what you're getting in the Natasha Denona palette. And for the dark brown in, I guess it's not the dark brown, it's like Whipped this shade here, Whipped, is very similar to Cocoa in the Natasha Denona palette. So just in case you have this palette, you can determine whether or not you think this is similar enough for you to pass on the Natasha Denona palette. And I know some people are just going to pass just off rip because it is all neutral, you know, just based on various reasons, the price point, things like that. I know some people are just going to skip it, but for those of you who want to know more about whether you can pick some of these shades from your existing collection, then this part of the video is for you. Maybe 7 shades out of here that can pass for similar dupes, not 100% all of them, but you know, some of them are very close. The ABH Sultry Palette. Alright, so this one I think does have a decent amount of shades that are similar. Here are the two palettes. So we've got, you know, we've got a black in the Sultry, a black in the Natasha Denona palette, the dark brown in the Sultry, along with various dark browns in the Natasha Denona palette, the fresh shade from Sultry compared to Tusk in Natasha Denona. So we've got a few shades here that could pass, you know, for dupes. Alright, so for the first metallic shade in the Natasha Denona palette, it is Rustic. And as a dupe, you could go with Teak and Cinder. Cinder's a little lighter and Teak is a little lighter as well, but they have similar tones, okay? So Rustic and the Natasha Denona is a little bit darker, just a half a shade or so darker than the two shades that I just mentioned from the Sultry palette, but hey, there is a similarity there. Let's see, I thought Birch might be similar to something in the palette, but it really isn't, but that swatch is on the screen so you can see how that compares to the shades, as well as Steampunk. That doesn't match any of the other metallics, so I think the only shade in the Natasha Denona palette you can dupe out with Sultry is Rustic. The other two metallics are not going to be dupeable in my opinion. So then for Dystopian, Dystopian is very similar to Seed. Dystopian is very similar to Seed, and Slate is very similar to Sculpture. And Noir is obviously, it's a black, so you can dupe that for Spot, but Noir is very, very, very pigmented, super black, and once again that Spot shade is a cream to powder, so you're going to get a lighter tone on your eyes when you use Spot, which could be nice for those of you who want to build up your blacks rather than getting full-on intensity upon first application. And then Tusk and Fresh are similar. I feel like Tusk is a little bit more yellow than Fresh. Fresh is a little more true white, a little bit more eggshell, less yellow, okay? So just FYI. And finally, the palette that I think is the most similar to the Natasha Denona palette is the Soft Glam. Here is the Soft Glam. I found a lot of shades in this palette that may be considered dupes for the Natasha Denona. So as you can see, there's a lot of warmth in this palette, but there are some neutrals in this palette that would dupe out some of the shades in the Natasha Denona palette. So first off, Tempura. Tempura is, or Tempera, not tempura, that's like a food at the Chinese restaurant. Okay. Tempera is very similar to Tusk, although once again I think Tusk is a little bit more yellow toned and Tempera is a little more peachy toned in its undertone. Okay, we've got Orange Soda. Orange Soda is not similar to anything in the Natasha Denona palette, but I did swatch it underneath Prairie just to give you guys an idea of what that one looks like. Okay, we've got Burnt Orange. Burnt Orange is very similar to Freckle in the palette. Okay, and then let's see, same, still on the first row of Sultry, Mulberry is similar to, let's see, is that similar to Pasha. Mulberry is very similar to Pasha in this palette. I guess Mulberry could also be similar to Rayon, but Rayon comes off a little bit lighter because once again that is a cream to powder formula. And let's see, we've got Rustic. I've got that compared, okay, I've got Rustic compared to Rustic compared to Rayon, and it's really not a close comparison at all. And then let's see, Cypress Umber, very similar to Seed. Noir, similar to Spot once again. So, and as far as the metallics are concerned, Glistening is similar to Shine. 6. I would say maybe 6. So Sultry and Soft Glam have the most shades similar to the Natasha Denona BIBA palette. So if you have these palettes, then you could get the majority of the shades that you are seeing in the Natasha Denona palette. The benefit I saw with this palette is that it's all in one palette. So it's up to you guys. I mean, if you're going to be traveling and you want to do a lot of neutral looks, I think this is very good. I think it's very travel friendly, and you know, you can get everything that you could possibly want with a neutral look from this palette, I think. But if you don't mind picking from other palettes, if you don't think that you would ever want to use all of these tones at once, and you'll be fine with pulling from Sultry versus pulling from pulling from Soft Glam, and you don't care if they're in separate palettes, then you don't need this. But I just thought it was very convenient. I thought it's a very good very nice, travel-friendly, convenient arrangement of neutrals. So this would be all you ever really need for neutrals. What I would say is a drawback is there's not a lot of metallics in this palette. There's not a lot of metallics or shiny shades in the palette. You're just getting 3. So I think she could have probably put some more of those in there, maybe 2 more, you know, because people nowadays, they really, I mean, if you're into the makeup, you really probably like, you know, some metallics. And we've only got 3 in here, so that's a drawback. And you know, I think if you're looking for something in regards, just sticking with this palette, talking strictly about this palette, you can get some nice crease tones in if you're in deeper skin tone. So for me, you can see I just use Pasha mainly in my crease and on my outer V, and I have a nice depth on my eye look. Okay, so that provides a lot of nice depth. I didn't use Cocoa, but I think that one will be a good one for my crease. And then of course, what is this one? Spot and Sculpture. I think both of those would be very nice for the crease. So I'm looking forward to, not Sculpture, Tour. I'm looking forward to using more of these shades, you know, in the coming week. So let's get into another look. I wanted to do another look for you guys. I did use this yesterday, so I'm just going to recreate the look that I used yesterday, which was Sunday. I did not record it. And I went into the cooler tones. But I used some of the neutral ones from the top row as well. So let's see how these combine. Okay, I'm going in with Prairie on my number 3 brush and laying that down in the transition area. Okay, and I'm using all tones that I did not use in the previous look. Okay, actually I think I'm using one shade that I did use in the previous look, but it's okay, I don't use a lot of it. So alright, so Prairie is a nice transition shade. It, you know, it provides some warmth in that area. Okay, come on and stop being blurry. Okay, so you can tell the difference between this eye and this eye. It, you know, it's pretty blank over there, but you've got a little bit of warmth in that transition area. So, yeah, that's what Prairie's doing. Not depositing too much depth, but there is some, you know, some warmth there. Okay. Next, I'm going in with my Sonia G Worker 1. And I'm going to go into Sculpture. I'm picking that up on this brush and just laying this down on the lid. Kind of packing it. I'm not really rubbing. I want to get, you know, that full-on gray tone all the way up into the crease area. And I'm just taking this like on 2/3 of the eye and leaving the outer V empty. And then I'm going a little bit up into the crease with this shade. And they just blend together, like the transition shade that I use, Prairie, and then this shade Sculpture just blend together nicely. They don't muddy up, even though they are different undertones. Going in with my Sonia G Blender Pro into Tour. This is the darker gray tone in the palette, but this is that cream to powder formula, so you're not going to get that full on like intense pigmentation that I got with Sculpture when I laid that one down, you know. Okay, and so now I'm getting a little bit of a stick with where I initially laid it, and I think it's just that cream to powder formula. I picked up too much on my brush and laid that down right there. I'm going to see what I get with my finger. Because it is cream to powder, I wanted to see, you know, how this will perform by just taking some with your finger and laying it down. It's okay. I'm getting some depth there. So you guys can see the difference between this shade, which is Tour, or Sculpture, and this shade, which is Tour on the outer V. Taking that and just blending up into the transition area and over top of Sculpture to make sure these two blend together nicely. And so as you can see, I'm getting that nice gray gradient from the light to the dark. But the dark is not overpowering and making it too much of like a gray smoky eye. I think this is really nice. And whatever's left on the brush, I'm just making sure that it's blended out in the transition area. Okay. So at this point you could leave it because it is just a nice subtle, you know, daytime look. It's not too smoky, not too dark in the crease, not too dark on the outer V. And so you could leave it, put on some liner and mascara, or however you like to finish off your eyes, and you know, you could be done. But I'm gonna go ahead and add a little bit more. You guys know me, and I like to show you guys more than just a couple shades in these looks, especially with this palette, because I get a feeling there's not going to be like too many requests for additional looks with this because it is so, you know, neutral. So I'm going in with Seed, that's next to Tour on the bottom row, and I'm taking this in that outer V area, overlapping Tour and a little bit of Sculpture, just to add a little bit of depth in this area, a little bit more depth. Okay. And this is a creamy matte shade, so I am getting that intense pigmentation there. But it doesn't look muddy. So it's still, you still got your gray tone there with Sculpture. You still got your gray tone around the edge with Tour. If you want more of that gray tone around the edge from Tour, just go back in and take it over the edge. And I don't think this looks muddy at all. I think it just looks like a nice, you know, neutral toned, you know, a neutral, like neutral in color, not neutral in tone, you know, like everyday shades for a slight little smoky effect. Okay, and I'm going in with Shine from the top row. This has like a golden tone to it, and I'm putting this in on the brow bone with my MAC 242. And taking the same shade on my inner corner, just pressing that in. I don't want fallout, so I'm just pressing that in. Then I'm going to take on my 27S Wayne Goss brush, Tour, for the lower lash line. So for my lash line, for my liquid line, I'm going to go with my Milani Chocolate, what is it called? Dark Coffee Matte, that's what it's called. My Stay Put Matte Liner by Milani in the shade Coffee, which is a dark brown. And then I'm going to go on my inner, or my lower lash line with an Essence eyeliner in the shade But First Espresso. I'll do that right now. Alright, so there we've got a dark brown liner on the waterline. Yesterday I went in with a teal, so if you want to add more color, then you could like go in with a colored eyeliner on the bottom lash line, or the bottom waterline, but you know, today I wanted to keep it neutral. Alright, I will be back with the other look, with the other eye, so you guys can see what it looks like in the final, you know, what the final look looks like, and you guys can give your thoughts in the comment section below. Alright guys, so here's the final look for the second look using the BIBA palette. Alright, so it's all matte except for the inner corner and brow bone. And I think it's super cute. I like it. So I like these all matte looks. Sultry, the ABH Sultry Palette is really what got me into the cool tones and stuff. I feel like this look is a little bit more neutral rather than cool. I feel like the Sultry, like the grays and stuff, and Sultry are super cool, but this is, you know, like coolish neutral. So I think it's really cute and very, very wearable, everyday wearable, you know. So yeah guys, let me know your thoughts. Which look do you like better? And yeah, I'll hop either back into the video or, you know, or into my ending for the initial video, whatever. Let's just hop right into the other footage. So I think I'm going to put this in my haul, you know, for April. Gosh, March is almost over. Okay. So yeah guys, I hope this video was helpful for you. This is just my first look at it. I'm not saying that it's a favorite. I'm not saying that it is, you know, bomb and you got to run out and buy it. It is a permanent part of the collection, so you can hold off, see some more videos, see some more comparisons and things like that, and make your decision, you know, after a while. But I ran out and got it, okay? So I hope this video was helpful. If you thought it was, definitely give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more content from me, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. And I upload videos 3 to 4 times per week. If you want to be notified when I do those uploads, hit the notification bell and set up your notification settings. And I will be talking to you guys really, really soon. Thank you so much for watching. See ya.